After being assaulted by a man, this young nurse not only holds no grudge against him after recovering, she even dresses up carefully and goes to the prison to visit him. If you don't watch until the end, you'll never guess what her real purpose is, and it's absolutely chilling. Milan is an outstanding nurse. Since she had been single for years, her co-worker decided to introduce her to a friend and even arranged for the date to take place at her home. On the day of the planned blind date, Milan suddenly heard noises coming from the doorway. When she opened the door, she saw a scruffy, unkempt man standing there. He wasn't her type at all, but out of politeness, she still invited him inside. However, as they talked, the man kept scanning her with a disgusting, leering gaze. He was nothing like the refined gentleman her friend had described. After asking a few details about the date, Milan realized she had mistaken him for someone else and told him to leave. But instead of walking out, the man turned around and locked the door. It was clear he wasn't listening to a word she said. In the next moment, he snapped, forcing her to the ground like a beast. Milan fought back with everything she had, but she was no match for his strength. In the end, she was assaulted. A short while later, the actual blind date arrived, holding a bouquet of flowers. He knocked on the door, but when no one answered, he let himself in. What he found inside the kitchen froze him in shock. He immediately called the police, and Milan was rushed to the hospital. When Milan woke up in the hospital, her face was covered in bruises. Physically, she wasn't seriously injured, but mentally she was completely shattered. Her eyes were blank, her expression empty, as she stared at the ceiling in a daze. Then suddenly, she remembered who the attacker was. It was the delivery guy who often brought food to her. Based on the clues, the police quickly tracked down the man and arrested him as he was trying to flee. Even though the criminal was caught, Milan still couldn't recover. Everything that happened that day was a living nightmare to her. Her father returned home, trembling as he ran his hand across the house. The guilt of not being able to protect his daughter ate him alive. All he could do now was stay by her side carefully, trying to help her through this painful time. Milan was soon discharged from the hospital, but she still couldn't escape the psychological trauma. She wanted to move somewhere no one knew her and start over. But the worst part was that because of the violent incident, no one was willing to buy her house. That meant she had no money to move, and in the end, she had no choice but to stay there, enduring the pain of living in the same place where it happened. When she returned to work at the hospital, the trauma followed her. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. For a nurse, that was the cruelest thing imaginable. Her co-workers tried to help her recover and gave her a doll as a gift. But no matter how much she practiced at home, her hands kept trembling uncontrollably. Little by little, her personality began to change. She became irritable, short-tempered, and easily angered. She had no idea how to release the rage burning inside her. After countless sleepless nights, she finally came up with an idea. One day, she picked up a pen and wrote a letter to the man in prison. But the letter was quickly returned to her unopened. Milan didn't give up. She kept sending letter after letter, again and again. Strangely, after she started writing, she no longer looked as broken as before. She began facing reality with optimism, slowly returning to the life she used to have. And after sending so many letters, she finally received a reply. She had been granted permission to visit him in prison.